boxing news.
Listen, like I said before, she's a puppy, right? And with puppies, they need some potty training. And that's what she needs. She needs some potty training before she steps up to a big dog like myself. And like I said, the standard that I'm setting for myself is 12 rounds, 3 minutes. And I saw her performance. She looked like she got tired. She didn't look like what she talks about. So she knows exactly what she has to do, and I know what I'm doing. So there's a difference.
Was Alicia Baumgardner post-fight responding to Carolyn Dubois, who said, what did you say, Alicia Baumgardner? You love to talk about me needing puppy training, but you're the only one doing the yapping. Let's stop the cap. You need me as much as I need you. Let's fight. 12 threes. While I believe this could be a major fight in women's boxing, the next major fight in the calendar year, the misconception is that Alicia needs Carolyn. What? Alicia can move up and wait and fight the winner of Han versus Holm. Winner of that fight has an alphabet title the same as Carolyn Dubois has an alphabet title. Adding to the conversation was former champion Natasha Jonas, who said, "Are we back to the dog talk again? Bagsy's not doing the interviews," referring to Alicia Baumgardner. Bagsy. And so it would appear that transatlantically things are getting catty between the girls, and they're pairing up. Natasha Jonas, seemingly in solidarity of her fellow Brit, is talking down Alicia. Alicia Baumgardner, who responded by saying, "Let's be real. A lot of the hate isn't about boxing, it's about influence. It's uncomfortable when someone does it all and does it with class, the way I fight, the way I carry myself, the way I move. I don't have to be loud or sloppy to be dominant. I'm the whole package. And some people can't even put one part together. They talk. That's fine. Their relevance only shows up when they mention the bomb. I'll keep setting the standard. They can keep reacting." Does this fight happen? Well, it could, because they both fight under the MVP banner, but of course it may come at the expense of Carolyn's WBC title. If Alicia Baumgardner holds to this desire to fight for 12 threes instead of 10 twos, we know the World Boxing Council won't sanction it. Alicia literally just dropped her WBC title so that she could fight for 12 threes instead of 10 twos. Moving up to a new weight, it would be the exact same situation with Carolyn. If you want to fight for 12 threes, can't be for the green belt. So, does this fight happen next? Does it happen in the coming calendar year? Would these two fight for no alphabet title at all, for the sake of 12 threes? I think a lot of people would be happy to see Alicia and Carolyn fight for 10 twos, if that's what it takes, if that is the only obstacle. And for Alicia, who is some years older than Carolyn Dubois, time is of the essence, and I feel that if you're gonna fight Carolyn, now is the time to do it, because she's younger than you are. Time is on her side. Get her now while she is inexperienced. Carolyn Dubois is a skilled boxer. Anybody can see that, but she hasn't fought anybody yet. They have a lot of the same tools, Carolyn and Alicia. What separates them is experience. Alicia's been in there with Terry Harper, Michaela Mayer, Elham Mechaled, Christina Linardatu, 2 times. Delphine Persoon. You have to give Alicia the edge in experience, but that edge dulls over time. If you wait too long to make it, Carolyn may become more dangerous or experienced over time. Get her now, while she hasn't fought anybody and she's got a big mouth. Alicia can give Carolyn Dubois resistance, give her looks that she's never seen before in the paid ranks. Speed, agility, counterpunching that Carolyn hasn't had to work against. I mean, who has Carolyn Dubois really fought? Nobody. Nobody as good as Alicia. Nobody as experienced. No one as malleable as Alicia. There's been growing concerns that Alicia, in her last 2 fights, has looked a bit vulnerable and a bit flat. In the Jennifer Miranda fight, the more recent Layla Boudoir fight, my honest opinion, Alicia Baumgardner is not as switched on for those opponents as she was for the Harper fight or the Mayer fight. Those were big fights for Alicia that had the big fight feel, whereas fighting Jennifer and fighting Layla, can't say those were big fights. A fight with Carolyn, that would be, and I think she would be a lot more focused and a lot more switched on for Carolyn than she has been her last 2 outings. Some might say that Alicia looked vulnerable in the last 2 rounds of the fight with Layla, but Caroline Dubois looked vulnerable in the last few rounds of the Baumgardner Shin fight, so
She gassed.
I think Alicia has grown a bit comfortable, a bit civilized, living high on the hog with her newfound fame, newfound glory. She's got to go back to being a savage for Caroline. Show her who's boss.
Tap into that Fremont, Ohio.
I'm a big fan of Alicia Baumgardner. I have been for years, and I like her a lot more than I like Caroline, but I am also objective, and I am also a realist. Given that Alicia is a bit older than Caroline, she needs to have that fight sooner than later. The longer it takes to make, the more it favors the younger fighter. And that's the way it is. Is this fight going to happen next? That's up to the fighters, and that's up to MVP.
It's a little hard to imagine that Alicia and Caroline would fight without an alphabet title on the line. So if they're going to do this, it's got to be for 10-2s if you want it to be for Caroline's belt.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, reacting to the Joshua versus Paul fight, Hall of Fame promoter Lou DeBella took to his social media and said, "Nothing legit about this, Nikisa Badarian. Even if everything is quote-unquote legal, go ahead and sue me. No, this isn't good for boxing, sports, or entertainment. Good night." To which Nikisa Badarian, co-founder of MVP, responded, "You are too broke to sue. You beg other promoters to give fighters you have signed to exclusive agreements a contract and then take a cut of their money. You are bad for fighters. Good luck to you."
Is that true?
To an extent it is. That's how Lou DeBella in recent years amassed his reputation as little more than just a booking agent. Not having a network deal himself, a platform for his fighters to fight on, he would basically rent them out to the promoters that do, then get mad when he doesn't have more leverage in negotiations, while relying on those promoters to keep his fighters active, since he by himself could not. Now, he did do a series of smaller shows on his Broadway boxing circuit.
But that didn't last very long, and nobody was really eating off of that.
The truth is that ever since Lou Dibella was jettisoned from PBC Island for setting up that meeting between Deontay Wilder, John Skipper, DAZN, and Al Heyman, he never landed on his feet. He never really recovered after they gave him the boot. Before all of that, he was a rather well-to-do fixture in the sport of boxing, known for his time at HBO, all the work he did there, and his Lou DeBella entertainment promotional outfit. Up until the point that PBC jettisons this guy, he was in good economic standing, but after that, he never really recovered, and it's after that that he became little more than just a booking agent, signing fighters to contracts, not having a platform for them to fight, and instead renting them out to the promoters that do, while getting a piece of the action.
So for what? You ain't the one paying for the show.
You ain't the one paying the fighters, but that's the way it was for a long time. I heard that former champion Heather Hardy
Suing him.
included Lou Dibella in her recent lawsuit against Everlast, and I wonder what Amanda Serrano would have to say about Lou Dibella. Because it's the funniest thing. For a number of years, he represented Amanda Serrano while they tried to put together the Katie Taylor fight that at that time seemed quite elusive. It's not up until Lou DeBella is removed from the picture and she signs to MVP that things start to happen, that the fight gets made, that Amanda starts to make real money. It seemed that removing Lou DeBella was the game changer, and signing to Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian and MVP, that's when Amanda started making the money she truly deserved. So when Nikisa says these things about Lou DeBella, I wonder that he doesn't have her in mind.
Because I know there's some truth to it.
But Lou DeBella continued, "By the way, the guy who should feel ashamed right now is Anthony Joshua. That was his legacy. Paul is a great businessman. AJ doesn't give two shits about boxing."
Oh, but you do, right, Lou? Altruistic Lou always has something to say, standing on his soapbox. You're telling me that if a fighter Lou DeBella was representing was able to fight Jake Paul for the money that Jake Paul just kicked out for Anthony, you're telling me that Lou wouldn't have taken the fight? You're telling me that Lou wouldn't have been just as involved as anybody else because he's so concerned with the sanctity of boxing, the image?
Bullshit.
You're just mad you're not getting to make any money off of what's going on. And that's all it really is. You're just mad that you're not invited to the party. It's like when Conor Benn tested positive for a banned substance, and Lou DeBella had so much to say, as if none of Lou's fighters ever popped hot. Heather Hardy, Hannah Gabriel's after Jean Pascal tested positive for 4 different banned substances. Who picked him up right after that?
Lou DeBella.
And who represented him going into the Michael Eifert fight right after that?
Lou DeBella.
So that when he starts harping about fighters testing positive for banned substances and how anti-doping in boxing is a joke, apparently it's a joke you like to tell, as you're just as much a party to it as everybody else. And here and now, when he starts harping about legacy and not caring about the sport of boxing, because you wouldn't have just as easily made a fight with Jake.
Bullshit.
For you start preaching to me about Anthony Joshua standing on your soapbox, look at what other fighters volunteered themselves to fight that same Jake Paul. Undisputed champion Artur Beterbiev, undisputed champion Oleksandr Usyk, bridgerweight champion Kevin Lerena, cruiserweight champion Noel Mikhailian. Ryan Garcia was in the running, and we all know that Gervonta Davis was before he got himself in trouble. So that when you start harping about Anthony and his legacy, why don't you just grow the hell up?
You know that there's a story out there right now that Terrence Crawford was also offered the fight, and Terrence Crawford accepted the fight. And you're telling me that because he accepted that fight, that ruins his legacy?
Give me a break, Lou.
Can the Sally Struthers act? Nobody buys into your altruism. If you had the opportunity to make money off of one of your fighters fighting Jake, you would do it. Just as easily as Eddie did it, just as easily as Anthony did it. Because it's an easy lick. Because it's for a monumental amount of money, and because this is prize fighting, not pride fighting. If Lou DeBella's comments are a testament to anything, it's how hypocritical so many people are in the sport of boxing. And I know that there are a good number of boxers right now that are critical of Jake Paul, but I can guarantee you that if Jake offered any of them the same kind of money he offered Anthony, they'd take that fight.
Make no fucking bones about it, they would take that fight in a heartbeat.
So what are you really mad at? That this is tarnishing the image of boxing, or that you don't get to make any money from it?
Why are you mad?
You think that Jake Paul is boxing's biggest problem, that he's what's tarnishing the image of the sport? Newsflash. The WBA put a title in Rolly Romero's hand. A welterweight title with Rolly having not even fought a welterweight. The World Boxing Council is giving Ryan Garcia a title shot off a loss and a doping suspension.
Hate to break the news to you, Lou, but boxing tarnishes its own image all the time without any help from Jake Paul. And it's a bit nauseating how you want to play pretend that you wouldn't be a party to his circus the same as anybody else if it were on offer. You're nowhere near as honorable or altruistic as you make yourself out to be. You're not the purist you make yourself out to be. You know that there were actually 4 cards this weekend. It wasn't just the Netflix show.
Dimitri Salita had a card yesterday headlined by 2 women, and I didn't see Lou spend any time on that or the 2 shows in Africa. The one headlined by Craig Spider Richards versus Dan Aziz, and the other earlier today headlined by Lawrence Okoli versus Ebenezer Tete. So while you play purist, it really doesn't fool me. There's a reason you were focused on the Jake Paul fight on Netflix, and it's the money. We all know it's the money, and that's what you're really mad at, that you don't get to make any money from this. I can almost guarantee that if Jake Paul were doing the exact same thing that he's doing on a smaller scale in a shoebox somewhere in Miami for a fraction of the money, Lou wouldn't care. Lou's jealous.
You know, he used to be jealous of Eddie Hearn. Now he seems jealous of Jake Paul because he's bitter.
I'm not telling you that I love everything Jake Paul does, because I don't, but I also see through the bullshit and the pseudo-activism, the pseudo-altruism of what are supposed to be the purists. Spare me. Elsewhere in the men's heavyweight division, the ongoing situation involving former champion Joseph Parker and what's supposed to be that booger sugar. Joseph said, if I was guilty, I would say I'd made a mistake, but I'm not. Listen, there's not really much we can do or say because there's a bit of a process going on, but I do believe, well, hopefully, we will get cleared soon. You start questioning everything. You start questioning, why did I have that cup of tea? Or why did I do this? Or why did I do that? There's a lot of things you can think about. I've never failed a drug test before, so it was a surprise and a shock.
Joseph Parker doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who hits the slopes, but his buddies do.
Fury.
Lest we forget, he's bosom buddies with Tyson Fury, who we all know is a raging cokehead, so is some of Tyson Fury's trademark influence rubbing off on Joseph.
Joseph, who said, "In the past, I've enjoyed myself. I wouldn't say recreational drugs, but I went out and had a few beers and that. That's the old me, when I was young. Now, after every fight, all I do is go home to the wife and kids. My life is on track. I'm focused on living the best that I can live and doing the best that I can do." Joseph's last fight was under the auspices of the British Boxing Board of Control that hand out much lengthier suspensions for fighters who test positive for banned substances than the American commissions do, to where being frozen out of the heavyweight scene in the UK could be potentially catastrophic for Joseph, since that's where all the money is. It's not in the United States, it certainly isn't in Asia. They don't produce heavyweights.
Save Chinese danger man Zile Zhang, the Asian fighters just don't run that big.
Mexican fighters don't either. Whenever Mexico produces a heavyweight, 9 times out of 10, he's about 5'10" and looks like somebody's plumber. Comes to world-class heavyweights and world-class paydays for a heavyweight, it really is centered around Europe and more specifically, the United Kingdom, where the big names are. So it is imperative that Joseph Parker clear his name and continue to fight in the UK. But it sounds like he's going to. It sounds like Joseph is confident that he will be cleared and he will be allowed to fight.
So what fights make sense for Joseph if he is allowed to continue boxing in the United Kingdom? He is a former champion. His name still carries some weight. Even if he's coming off that knockout loss to Flavio Wortley.
Don't look for a rematch because I don't expect Frank to make one. But you could do Joseph Parker versus Daniel Dubois, reschedule that fight that was supposed to go down in Riyadh. You could do Parker versus Dubois, Parker versus Moses Sitalma down the line as Moses builds up his record. I wouldn't call Joseph Parker a big marquee attraction or a big draw, even though he's well-known, respected, and been around for years. By himself, he's not that big a draw, but with the right dance partner, if the situation is interesting enough, it will draw a crowd.
So you don't think he was sniffing?
No, I really don't. He just doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who hits the slopes. And I know that many boxers do. There are many boxers out there that like to treat their nose. His old buddy Tyson Fury, former champion Farrell Crotch.
There was a video of Kell Brock treating his nose to that booger sugar, subsequently following it up with a bit of shadow boxing. Diabolical.
Boxers and that China White go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly, but when it comes to Joseph, he just doesn't give off that air, that persona. I don't really think he did it, but if he didn't do it, then what the hell happened? Is he being set up? Has he been hanging around the wrong people? I'm just not sure. But it does look like this is going to wrap itself up nicely and neatly for Joseph Parker, that he may yet be allowed to box in the United Kingdom again, and this will all go away. We'll see.